Are you ready?
Hello, everybody. This is the Parishscope. This is the podcast that acts as an arm as a newsletter for St. John Sam Prairie and their newsletter publication called the Parishscope. I'm Pastor Chris.
And I'm Casey. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran in Washington.
Well, all right. Well, so first things first, Casey.
Yes.
You're a little hoarse.
I am a little hoarse.
You can tell your voice is strained a little bit. How
Yeah,
you
it
feeling?
is. I'm feeling okay. We had a big concert this past weekend. It was our jazz fest at my wife's school, and my band plays, and we bring back alumni, and it's a really fun time. But I think my body for the last 3 weeks has been anticipating that this concert was coming, because it's just it's a really, really fun event. It's really exciting. And I think as soon as it was over, my body just was like, oh, okay, we're just going to give you everything we've been holding back.
That's the way it goes, isn't it? I remember when I was in college, it was always like the week after final week. Like I'd have finals and feel great, and then I'd be sick.
Yes.
Or be awful, just completely depleted.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I actually, so I'm my voice is I may squeak or, go out, but I actually sang to my wife. I sang my middle school, my 7th grade middle school musical song that I sang because my voice changed right during that musical. So I was the lead and my voice was horrible. So I sang, I'm like, it sounded just like this. Oh, my captain. Oh, my captain. And it's pretty uncanny, actually. So
really, you're doing an incredible job.
Just pretty much how I sounded. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh man. So anyway, just a heads up for everybody, we will not have a podcast next week. It's going to be the eve of Thanksgiving. Got lots of other things going on. So don't expect a new one next week. Now, I mean, again, we're not really not guaranteed every week. We try to do it every week, but we miss one here and there. But
yeah,
this one's pre-planned.
Yes,
it's pre-planned skip. So, all right. So there's the regular business. So now let's so the first topic we have for today, and I actually sent you a video to think about this. Okay, so here's a little bit of a rundown. So we have to understand a little bit about our synod, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, before we can go too much further. Otherwise, we run into a lot of misunderstandings. Recently this week, a video came up by Zach Zender. He's actually the guy that wrote the Red Letter Challenge books. He's a pastor at one of the largest churches in our synod. He is one of the pastors, I guess I should say. They have several. Anyway, he was kind of decrying something called the SMP program, and more specifically, a set of restrictions that just recently came out. And we're gonna get into it a little bit. We want to lay down the foundation and why there's some of the confusion, and I'm going to present kind of, you and I are going to talk back and forth a little bit, and I'm going to try to hopefully sum up both sides of the argument. Because otherwise it's if you just hear one side, it's never productive. So anyway, so the SMP is our specific or specialized, I think it is actually specific ministry program. The Synod created this program in 2007. They were trying to get rid of a couple different other programs. So we had this one program in our Synod called lay ministers, or lay ministry, and it was super confusing. And because it was one of those things, like you had these guys, and basically you were training them up, in such a way that they can, in essence, act as pastors of a church. But then they were never pastors. And so theologically, it was like a disaster. Like, are they a pastor or are they not? Accept calls or anything like that. They could only, and it was really muddy. It was really wonky. We had another program, even when I was at seminary, called Delto. distance education leading to ordination, or DELTO. They kind of did away with both of these, and they landed on the SMP program. And the SMP was designed for a couple different purposes. One was to basically train people for very specialized things. So let's say you are a person in a church and you want to be kind of a specialized like youth person or a youth ministry person. Well, they have a program for that.
Oh,
And the program allows you to stay at your church and train, with the supervision of a pastor, maybe even your district president. Um, and then like the seminary or another school can train you, and you can kind of work towards that goal of being in that specialized ministry or specific ministry. They also had a path, though, in the SMP that led toward ordination, to become an actual pastor. Now, notice this is not like lay ministry. Like this, they were pastors, and that
right.
was the way it was. They were actually pastors, which means they could take calls and all those kind of things. Um, Part of the reason that they did that was because they needed a distance education. They also needed a way to train people in the field. Because again, not just anybody can just, quit working for 4 years and go to the seminary.
Right.
And so they wanted a way in which they could be supervised and they could work their way through it. It was always said, though, that the seminaries, our two seminaries should be the preference. Always preferred to go to seminary, um, not through SMP. SMP is kind of like a, life throws you lemons, let's make some lemonade out of it kind of thing.
Right.
Because and we're facing a pastoral shortage, which a lot of people have been feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a rundown on the SMP program. Now here's where the video comes in with Zach Zender and several others. They had a committee, and like I was just actually reading about this before we got on, and to be honest, like the committee, it was like reassigned a couple different times, and they never quite got done with their work with the various policy requirements and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're finally done, and they finally submitted it, and so thus these requirements now take effect pretty much immediately. And
Ah,
one of them, most of them, most of these requirements are, nothing that you wouldn't expect. But there's one in particular that's causing a bit of a stir, and it's policy requirement number 3, and it's SMP applicants must be at least 40 years old.
yeah.
And that's the one that's the controversy.
Yeah. Ouch.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way Zender kind of spells it out is like, this is going to hurt us because what if you have somebody who's younger than 40 who wants to get into the ministry but finds themselves in a situation where they can't go to the seminary? They're now stuck until they're 40 years old,
Yeah.
and so he feels like that we're just adding more restrictions onto it. And I get his point. Honestly, I do. I get the point. I get the frustration with all of that. And so but his kind of argument is basically that by adding an extra restriction, you're making this thing, even more unbiblical in a sense, is what he might argue. And then also on top of that, you're making it harder. You're making one more hoop to jump through in order to become a pastor, when we need to be like working on taking loops away, taking hoops away that
Yeah.
people have to jump through. And that's kind of his argument.
Right.
Now, the counter argument to that is that uh, a couple different things. First of all, that the restriction is good because people under the age of 40 should be finding a way to go to seminary proper. Um, they should not be using the SMP as almost like a workaround. And then the second major point is that the SMP program has been used, churches, they would argue, incorrectly,
Mm.
because a lot of churches are using it to basically craft and create their own pastors for their own church. So that is to say, like, let's say I don't necessarily agree with everything Synod teaches per se, but I stay out of the radar but I want to make sure I get another pastor because I need another. I'm overworked. I need another pastor to work with me, and so I'm going to get permission through with the DP. I'm going to get permission through my church, and I'll be the supervisor, and I will basically train this pastor up so that he basically thinks and preaches and teaches all the same things that I do.
Right.
And so the argument is that at 40 a person would be more mature. They'll probably less easily fall for that kind of thing. By and large, having them wait till 40 kind of puts a stop to that.
Mm. I can understand. I understand that argument for sure. I mean, you don't want. I could see where if you have a church that is maybe a larger church that they have the ability to keep recruiting people and training people and basically creating their own pastors. If that
Right.
continues to happen without any outside, like with any outside teachings from
Yeah.
like the actual synod, then there is a very good chance that it could become uh, a lot looser in
Yeah.
theology.
Yeah.
Because you're not going with what the synod is saying specifically. You're going with what that particular person
Yeah.
believes or
Now,
thinks.
I will say this though, the SMP program, it is a 4-year program, and it does have like almost like correspondence classes that they go through that are run by the seminaries, and they have,
Okay.
at least once a year they have at least a 1 week intensive on campus.
Ah, okay.
So it's not completely void of the seminary, um, but again, again the amount of classwork that an SMP person will do is significantly less than a traditional seminarian.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, again, the SMP is supposed to still be working and still be doing stuff, and so it's like, they're not all into the education. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
again, so the synod and the seminaries do have some amount of say in things, in that
Right.
regard. Um,
But let's say, I mean, see, I didn't even know that this was a program. I wasn't even aware of it
yeah.
before you sent me this video. So let's say, since it's a very real situation, like our Savior is going through, you know, with this, we just did our 8th call, and it was was returned with not coming. Um, like, would it be something, or would it only be through that church? Like, it would have to be someone at Our Savior, or could like I join that program if I was 40, and like you could teach me, or a retired pastor in the area could basically be my supervisor, or is that not how that works?
No, no, no. That could hypothetically work. Now, again, you would have to be. I'm just looking at the rest of these. So you would
Yeah.
have to be a member of an LCMS congregation for at least 5 years.
Ah,
You would
okay.
have to. You would have to be in the church that you plan to be at for at least 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And then yeah, over 40, and so yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that's some of the other restrictions. But again, nobody's arguing with some of these other ones. Just that one with the 40 years old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand the idea that the older someone is, the better. And you said this isn't restricting people from going to the actual seminary.
Yeah,
So
no,
like
not at all.
you can be 21 and go to the seminary and be, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like but even for me, like, let's say hypothetically I did want to do that. Um I'm in a situation where like my wife has a career here.
Hmm.
I'm working at this church, but I'm only 34. So it like I'm not really in a position where I can just pick up my whole family and go, you
Yeah.
know. And because it would be like my wife basically has the sort of the dream job that,
Hmm.
a music teacher would want. And so she can't just quit her job. So I don't know. It's even
It's
at
yeah.
34, it's like I'm kind of locked in at 34. even.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some people maybe aren't at that age, but I can understand why. Uh, I don't know. I would just think even if they lowered it to 32 or something or 30, I would think that would be a little bit more helpful. But I can understand when you're 40, you probably have lived enough life that if someone's kind of telling you stuff that isn't really, you know, true theology, you can kind of pick that out better, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, it's such a hard thing because we do have a shortage of pastors. And so I
Yeah.
understand the idea of why do we have to make this as hard as it is? But I'll also say this, like I'm a product. I went through seminary, the traditional route, so to speak. I went
Hmm.
to seminary and everything else. And there really was, there really is, just looking at some of the course load that these guys take and what they have to do and not do, is like there is a very, very big difference between the education I got versus the education that they get.
Yeah.
And that's not to argue that they're like less than, but it is a lesser education. You
Yeah.
know, this is cut down to the bare bones. And
Hmm.
I will also say this. I noticed by the first three requirements. So the must be 40 years of age is actually one of the first three, and it has an asterisk by it, and underneath it it says exceptions to policy requirements 1 through 3 may be recommended to the admission committee of the seminaries by the Council of Presidents after approval by a majority of the COP, which is the Council of Presidents.
Mm.
So it does sound like some exceptions could be made if the correct argument is there.
Ah, okay.
So I did
So,
not notice that before. Just kind of noticed it. I got it pulled up and I'm like reading it. So uh,
well, and in that video, he didn't really mention that. So, um, I forget his name, but you had the
Alexander.
YouTuber. Yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't really say that there was
Yeah.
maybe a chance of.
Well, and again,
Uh,
how often are they going to do that? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And again, I'll be honest with, like, I see his point that he's trying to make. Like, again, this is just one more, hoop that you have to jump through.
yeah,
And I get that. I really, really do. Um because again, we do have a pastoral shortage. But I would say the thing is the reason I'm kind of leaning to actually agreeing with this as a policy, which is not where I thought I would be whenever we first said, "Hey, we're going to talk about this."
yeah,
Um, but yeah, just again, the overall quality of education, and it sounds like it's reasonably flexible. Again, I don't know how often they're going to actually use that exception or not. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I wonder. I mean, it's probably sorry. It's probably a lot different for seminary. I would say. I just the first thing I kind of thought is that as since I've worked in a music store, several music stores, is that like our repair department is an example of there are lots of repair trade schools around.
Mhm.
Or I shouldn't say a lot. There's a few, and the thing about those is that they teach you a very brief idea of like how to do repairs. Like it's like a 6 month program, and of course,
Yeah,
seminary is 4 years, so that's not really comparable. But the thing that is interesting about it is that we'll have people who graduated from one of these trade schools. They'll apply, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, our final was we repatted a saxophone," and you're like, "Oh cool, we do like 8 of those a day." And you've
yeah,
done it once. Like they've only done it one time, and so it's like it. And so there's some music stores that I've met that are like really massive ones in Texas, and they don't hire anybody from these trade schools. They actually created their own program because
sure.
they can train them, like they can actually give them hands-on experience because they have stuff coming in all the time for repairs. So
Hmm.
they can say, hey, we got this clarinet. I want you to repad it. And then, if you have like try it. And then if you have any questions, ask our like the supervisor. And so they get like on the job experience, more like you would like an electrician would
Sure, sure.
train. But the people who come out of their store typically are way better equipped to actually do repairs than the people coming out of the trade schools. But from what it sounds like you're saying, and that's what I was kind of taking in when I was watching that video, is I was wondering, like, are some of these churches able to sort of produce pastors a lot faster, or in a, maybe in a more hands-on experience since they're at a church?
And there is a
And
truth
I
in
don't
that.
know.
There is a truth in that. For sure there is. And I think that's actually one of the things, though, right? Like there is a truth in that. Um, but I guess it would be kind of like, each church has its own kind of culture, its own kind of way about itself, and
Uh-huh.
um and this is teaching that person their church. And again, that's fine. Again, actually, to be honest with you, I don't really have an issue with that as well. Um, and to be honest with you, I don't have an issue with a lot of things. Like honestly, I think a lot of our educational system as a whole in America is very bloated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like look, if you go to college and you say, I man, I don't know. Let's say you want to be a journalist. Like, how many classes are you going to take in your 4 years of a bachelor school that's going to deal with actual journalism?
Yeah, not
You
much.
know, and why do you need to learn, biology and chemistry and all that? And it's not to say that those things aren't important. They are. They're very, very important, but I don't know if they're important for a journalist.
Right.
You know, um, and so I do almost wonder about some of that. But that being said, I will say this: seminary is past all that. Like, we didn't have science class in seminary. We didn't have
Oh yeah.
biology class in seminary. We didn't have advanced mathematics in seminary. Um, math is cool. Math is awesome. But you don't necessarily need a lot of calculus when you're, studying the scriptures per se. Um, and so we just didn't have a lot of math. But what we did have was a lot of theology, a lot of exegetical stuff, a lot of practical ministry stuff. And so, again, if you're going to skimp on something, do you really want to skimp on the seminary side of things? And again, I guess there's even in that, there's some things that maybe you can skimp in, um, but yeah, that would be a tough call. Like, what do you skimp in and how much?
Right.
Right.
It is interesting to think about.
So, but yeah, so there you guys all go. There's the big hot button issue of the day. Now, I should also say this: this coming summer, we will have our big synodical convention that's coming up, and it seems to be, for whatever reason. So there's a pastors love to argue. Not
I
all
s-
of them, but some of them just really love to argue, and it seems like we argue around Christmas time, around Easter time, and right before a convention. And right before a convention, about a year before a convention, we're all having our district conventions, and anything that's kind of like you need to bring up or you want to make it go to the big synodical one needs to go through the district one. And so that's when, like, the arguments kind of start a little bit, and then usually there's some big argument, like, on something, and it just builds steam up until the actual day of the convention, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, what are we going to do with this one? And I don't know if this is the going to be the big argument, but it might be. It might be.
yeah,
Lay ministry, what the program they had as a precursor to this, that was a big issue for a
I'm
long
sure.
time.
I'm sure there's some people
Uh,
fired up about it.
big.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like that. And again, I honestly, I didn't either. I didn't love that because lay ministry just added more
Mhm.
confusion. Were they a pastor or were they not?
Yeah.
You know, the quote unquote walks like a duck, talks like a duck, but it isn't a duck. It's like it's it sounds like a duck, but it's
Yeah.
not. here you had these people that were trained, that were preaching, that were doing communion, that were doing all the things that pastors do, but we were like, oh, they're not trained enough. They're not pastors. Like, well,
That's interesting. Yeah.
then don't ask them to do pastor work. It's like they're either a pastor or they're not.
Yeah.
You can't do this like halfway thing,
Yeah. That's
which in essence is what they were doing.
yeah.
So
That's an interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting topic. I mean, I can't imagine that would be very confusing if they just did all this stuff, but they didn't actually have a title. You know?
yeah, like I said, they were lay ministers, and it was just like that was
Yeah.
so weird. It was like just call him pastor, call it a day.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to see if there's any
So,
arguments, I guess.
well, I can tell you, like in like some of the forums, like the pastoral forums, like it's blowing up right now.
Well,
Over the
I saw the comment section. Oof, man, there's some people who are like telling him you should just leave the synod because nothing you say ever. It was like, geez, they're really getting at this guy.
Oh yeah. I'm sure he's probably used to it. I mean, again, he's a pastor at one of the biggest churches in our
Yeah,
synod,
that
so
comes with, I think. Yeah,
comes with the
probably comes with the
territory.
territory. I'm sure.
Well, and honestly, we did the Red Letter Challenge last year, and we're going to do a different version, a different one of them this coming January. And to be honest with you, I actually kind of like his books.
You better watch
So
that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm not going to say I agree with everything he says, but he says a lot of really smart things. So
better be
anyway.
careful. That comment section
right?
will come for us.
Get hunted down. Oh man. All right. So, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, so I've been, I talked about, uh, we had our jazz fest this weekend. I've been really busy, like, just I
Yeah.
haven't really had time to do anything. So I've been trying to catch up on work and everything. And my question, which I don't think I've asked before, but my question is, how is there a way? Do you have any thoughts on this as far as sort of staying in the mood and keeping God close in your week, even if you're not able to just like sit down and actually read your Bible or anything, like kind of using music or other things? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because the one thing so I'll bring up what I'm kind of thinking about. I recently found this group called Planet Shakers. I don't know if you've heard of them or not.
I
It's
have not.
Well, the thing is, I don't really take it as like worship music because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like funky, clubby sort of beats. Um, very like they have a song called let's get this party started, and not like the Black Eyed Peas, but sort of similar in
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like, clap your hands, come on, praise the Lord, and it's like, let's get this party started. But I would not say it's a worship song because it's not really. I mean, it's fun
Sure.
and it is talking about God, but it's not necessarily really saying anything. I mean, it's just kind of like a fun, goofy
Mm-hmm.
song. So, what's kind of your thoughts on that sort of stuff? That like it's really not. It doesn't really have a lot of theological benefit to it, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of putting that on while I'm cooking or cleaning or something. And just because I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm not listening to something that's got bad words in it, or is on something
Yeah.
negative. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm kind of asking, because um, I feel like nowadays people are kind of really big on the topic of like, does it have any actual like theological value, or is it just a song, an empty song that
Yeah.
really doesn't have a lot of meaning? Um, that might be,
Yeah.
is that too broad, or does
I,
that kind of make sense what I'm asking?
I think I understand where you're going, and so let me kind of say it like this, like um, there's times and seasons for all kinds of things, including music, um, and it I mean, again, just kind of like listening to what you say and how you say it. It's like, to be honest, like why shouldn't you listen to a song like that, or music like that that's kind of uplifting and that kind of directs you? Like, okay, so it's not the most theological. So okay, so probably not a good one for worship. Probably not going to be on your set list for church
Right.
service. But uh, just because it's not going to be on your set list for church service doesn't mean that you can't listen to it when you're doing other
Hmm.
things. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
Well, that's why I kind of wonder because I mean I think that's kind of a it's kind of something that gets debated a lot, and I think there are some artists currently that are,
Mhm.
Brandon Lake's a big one that is kind of around right now. Who he had the song "Gratitude" and the song "Praise,"
Mhm.
and there's of course there's always someone in the comments being like, well, these songs don't really have a lot of value to them, and I mean those are two songs that I would do in church. There's some other ones of his that I'm like, I wouldn't do this one, partly just because of like the style of it is maybe too intense for church, or
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
it's just not really something I think the congregation would sing along to. But I don't know.
Mhm.
There's when I was a kid, we had Christian artists, and their music wasn't really intended for church. It was,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
then we really
absolutely.
went heavy into worship, focused like Christian music, and now it's almost like, oh well, if that song doesn't have any, like, if you can't sing it in church, what's the point of it, sort of thing, to some people.
Yeah. See, and again, I would disagree with that. I mean, um, again, there are songs that are for church, and they should be at church. Like, the theology is there, the material is there, and all of it is built up, and it's right. It's right for church. It's right for worship. There's other songs that, they're just good songs. Maybe they're just fun to listen to, and quite frankly, if it's quote unquote Christian music, um, even better yet, then they have the extra added bonus of, they're not going to say swear words. It's more than likely, not always, but more than likely it'll be somewhat uplifting. And that's actually kind of a good thing too,
Yeah,
right? Like, music that uplifts us, it can impact our mood. They've done studies on that to show that music, good music, uplifting music can actually uplift you and make you feel
yeah,
better. So, yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that. Now to kind of further broaden that out, if you were say doing worship at home and you wanted to use that as part of your home worship, then I might say, well, maybe a different song might be of a better
hmm,
suit. Um, and don't get me wrong, maybe there is a time and place for that song where you can add the context for it. The song might not specifically say the context, but maybe you have a way of adding the context to it. In which case, then it kind of becomes a
yeah,
good song. You know, again, I love the song Amazing Grace. Not a lot of
yeah,
theology there. Just not, but there's times and places where that song is absolutely perfect and it says the message that needs to be
hmm,
said and it says it in a very good
yeah.
way. So,
Is there anything besides music you can think of that you would sort of use to just kind of, I don't know, either stay uplifted or feel closer to God, or
well, honestly, I mean, again, like I've always talked about, prayer
yeah,
in general being like the most underused thing ever.
yeah,
Um, and I just, again, I just, I feel that deep in my core. Like prayer is so
hmm,
underused. It just is. And to be fair, I'm guilty of that sometimes. Like, I don't sit here and talk in this podcast like I'm like the par excellence of a prayer life. Um, there's definitely times whenever I fall myself, but at the same time, it's like it is so underutilized and so underdone. The people that have a vigorous prayer life, it really does
yeah,
show. It does, and it just does. It changes a person. The more that they pray, the more time they spend in prayer. And I get it. You don't always have a ton of extra time. Um, but honestly, I find that most people have more than
yeah,
enough time if they only just think
yeah.
about it. You know, like I've said, and I know I've said it here on the podcast even before, like just set a timer, right? Set a 5 minute timer. I guarantee you, if you've never done that before and this is the first time you've ever set a timer, set a 5 minute timer. You might not be able to fill all that
Yeah.
time. You might find yourself struggling toward the end going, boy, I pray for clouds and,
Yeah.
just not knowing quite what to pray for. We're so used to quick, snappy prayers. But man, spending some time in prayer is always a really,
Yeah.
really good thing. Also reading the scriptures. And again, I understand you kind of, brought this whole point up by saying like, hey, what if I don't have a lot of time and stuff like that. But again, I mean, again, I always come back to the how much time does it
Right.
actually take?
No, and
You
you're
know, you know, um, now again, like this kind of goes in line. I have a pray do in my office,
yes,
right? I
famously.
I always have a part of the Bible open, ready to go, and I can just lean over and just read it. But I mean, maybe you don't have that, but maybe you should have something like that.
I've thought about it.
Maybe just have a Bible open
Yeah, I've
somewhere.
been thinking about building one pretty much ever since we talked about it on and I keep going I need to make one and then I need to do that sometime.
Yeah, you got a place where you'd put it.
Yeah, I think I just put it in my room down here with my little like studio, but I could put it in
Oh
I could
yeah.
put it down here.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, again, these are like things like again, I just know I know that reading the Bible, even if it's not an uplifting passage, there's something about reading the Bible just a little bit every single day. You said listen to it. That can you listen
Yeah.
to it sometimes. I know that's also a great thing. I also know that prayer is a great thing. And I mean, again, none of these things by themselves take up a lot of
Yeah.
time.
No, and you're
You
right. I
know,
mean, I can fully
um,
admit that if I would probably just make sure I make the time for it. I've been busy, but like you said, how much time does it really take? I could find 5 minutes to pray, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but again, I also understand, like, because again, like, I'm not sitting here talking to everybody like I'm like the greatest at this. There's times whenever I fall. There's times whenever I fail. There's times where I go a whole day and don't read any of the Bible, and I'm shamed to admit it, but it
Hmm.
is true. So I'm, I guess I'm bringing these points to the table not to be accusatory, but to simply kind of say like, look, there's other things that we can do, and we all need to get better at it, not just you, me, or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, well, that's I personally. I mean, I've the funny things I've been listening to that Planet Shakers. They're kind of fun if anybody wants to check them out. Again, it's very like club style music, kind of, but it's Christian based. And my daughter started singing one of the songs like yesterday, and she knew like every word of
Yeah.
it. And she's like playing in the other room while I'm listening to it. So she's getting it in her head too. So that's kind of a positive thing. Better
Hmm.
than me listening to, something like ACDC or something, something that, maybe isn't, not, no shame on ACDC, but, isn't
Yeah.
as positive, so
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. So one of the things that you're talking about brings up something that I was looking into the other day. Um, the LCMS, some of the, and I'll be honest, look, a very conservative arm of our Synod just recently came out with this thing called Memento. Uh, yeah, Memento. And the website is memento70.com. Um, but it's fascinating. So like, we talked the other week about like how from a statistical standpoint, a lot of Gen Z
uh-huh.
men seem to be going
Yes.
to church. And I've always kind of wondered, like, okay, so what do we just keep being conservative, kind of thing? Like, how do what are and so one of our more conservative brothers and sisters in Christ, and again, they're LCMS, they're just definitely on the more conservative side of things. They came out with this thing called Memento, and I have to admit, it has piqued my curiosity. Um, it's $60 a
Okay.
year. Well, until after Christmas, then it's $90. Um, but what it is so basically it's for men. It is for men over the age of 18, and it is kind of a reestablishment of the ancient
Mm.
disciplines of the church. And so it has a series of devotions that you do every day. Um, you also check in with an anchor. That's what they call them, an
Mm.
anchor. So basically, you check in with somebody every single day to talk about how it's going, how you're doing, all that kind of stuff. And then you meet once a week with what they're calling is your fraternity, which is your four to eight guys that you're
Mm.
doing this with. And then on top of that, so at first it's just a series of devotions, but then starting in Lent, you actually bring back the old disciplines of fasting and some of the other things that go
Mm.
along with that. And so you basically, and they want you to have like daily uh, matins and vespers services, which that's a morning service and an evening service. Um, they also want you to fast from technology. They want you to work out so many times a week. It's like all these like
Yeah.
kind of things kind of going along with it. And I'm really, really
Yeah.
intrigued because it seems really holistic. Um, but, but again, we're sitting over here talking about how we need to make time, for the various things, and that's one of the things that this program pretty much
Yeah.
does, right? Is it says, hey, let's quit acting like, one day all by myself, I'm going to make this a priority. And instead it says, hey, let's get a group of guys together and let's make it a priority. And then let's hold each other
Yeah.
accountable.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
And I know. And so like I said, I'm really looking at this and I'm really curious, uh, for all the details for how they're going to do it and I mean, again, it's a fascinating thing. Um, but yeah, so I've been keeping an eye on
Yeah.
it just because I'm interested. I mean, again, I do not think I'm going to do it. If anything, I'd make up my own plan,
Yeah.
um, but I can't say that I'm not
Yeah. It's
intrigued.
quite interesting.
Yeah. That you should, I don't think I have it open, do I? I was going to say you should, let me see if I can find that real quick. This thing, uh, I love, oh man, where it is it? It's, oh man,
No, you're
I'm
fine. Are you
sorry.
looking for like a information about that?
They have a blog. They have a blog post. So just so you're aware, there's the German word for like God's service is Gottesdienst,
Okay.
and they have a blog. And again, just a heads up, this is one of the most conservative arms of our Synod. So some of their practices are probably more conservative than what we are
Yeah.
accustomed um, to put it lightly. But anyway, I love that. So this is the headline. This is how. Remember, they're introducing this memento. This is what they're doing, and this is the blog post. Your medieval grandmother fasted harder than you do. And look, this is the first line. I love this. Do I have your attention? Outstanding. She knew the scriptures better than you. She prayed more than you. She fasted harder than you, which means she was more of a man than you. Something is wrong with that. And I love how they do that. I thought that was really well
Yeah.
done.
I will say this though. The thing that I find funny about that is that they're going with in the marketing world, from what I know as someone who's worked in like, service industry and marketing, some of that stuff. It's funny because that's typically a technique that would be uh, geared at women, because
Yeah,
usually it's more of like a fear thing or a shaming thing of like, you don't want your
sure.
kids to go to school with stains all over their shirt, do you? You know, you better get a detergent that really works. Like that's like their method. Like they do it that way. And with men,
Yeah,
typically way people advertise it's like it's going to be the coolest thing in the world. Like this is going to be the greatest
Yeah,
thing you've ever seen. It's so cool. Look at this Xbox. It's the greatest thing you've ever seen. It's
yeah,
got the greatest graphics, the best games. You're going to have the greatest time of your life, you know. That's like for men it's like it's always a party sort of thing. And with women
yeah,
it's more like, "Ooh, you know, you don't want to have that happen. That would be embarrassing." Now that is a
yeah,
very like
yeah,
uh probably maybe it's very outdated now, but that's like kind of the essential how they marketed to men and women. So it's funny to me that they're like, your medieval grandma was a man more than you. I'm like, oh, that's funny because it seems
yeah.
probably would deter a lot of guys right away.
It might, but
I kind
honestly,
of
I
like it
don't.
though.
I mean, again, maybe, but like, see, and I think that's part of the hook of this thing that really is because it's like, yeah, you're acting like, it's basically the more nuanced way of saying, hey, you're acting
Yeah.
like a girl.
Yeah, it
Stop it.
is. You can't say that now, so that's why they're doing it this way, I guess.
That's why they're doing it this way.
That's funny.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I just thought it was fascinating that here I have been reading all this stuff about this thing and again trying to figure out all the ins and outs of it. Just because again, if anything, I'd make my own system up, um, but then you're like, well, I need to make time. Like, yeah, yeah. Here, look at
Yeah.
this.
That's interesting.
Oh man.
Well, we should probably get on to your next segment because
Yeah,
we're gonna
probably
have a
get on to the
long
next section.
episode if we don't get to it.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints, learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
All right. Guys love their movies. And if there is one thing that is true in many, many of the action movies that a lot of guys love, it's that the most interesting man is usually the quiet one that sits in the back. Before it's all over, you just know that he's going to do something good. We also talk about how influential someone can be when they're not the show, when they're not the one that has all the bells and whistles, but they're the one who's calm, who's collected, who goes in a singular direction. That is why today I want to call this saint the Whisperer. We don't look a lot about this man's achievement, though he has many. We don't look at the overwhelming strength that he showed during the worst times, though he did show a lot of strength. No, this Whisperer finds himself in the background a lot of times. And yet, before it was all over, he wasn't in the background at all. Born into Rome when it was not just considered unpopular to be Christian, but it was in fact actually illegal, punishable by death, and many times torture was included with that. And yet, he held firm. He held firm even though it was hard to see at times. You see, he was standing in the shadow of giants, giants like Peter and Paul. Many people think that he was even mentioned in the book of Philippians. And when you're in the shadow of giants, it can be hard to be noticed at all. However, the Whisperer did not care. He wasn't after himself. He wasn't after self promotion. He wasn't after making his name a big name in the field. He was just there to be a servant, a whisperer that helped where he could and guided when he was needed. And yet, as much as he actually tried to not be noticed, it wasn't too long that he was, well, noticed. This whisperer in the shadows eventually had to come out into the light. He was made into the Bishop of Rome. Even that might go unnoticed in the great names of history if it wasn't for his writing. Yes, his writing. This whisperer wanted unity. He wanted humility. He wanted an end to the endless squabbling. But not in Rome. No, not in his church, but in the church at Corinth. And so, like the giant he stood behind, he wrote a letter to Corinth. The letter called on the church to a spirit of unity, with humbleness, with repentance. The letter didn't contain a bunch of fiery rhetoric or speaking down. No, it was a humble letter calling for peace. A letter so powerful that even the ancient Christians made copies and carried it with them. Some even used it like it was one of the biblical texts to read on a Sunday morning. Many people feel like this was one of the first historical instances where one church chided another church and called them to repentance. A lot of people call this man one of the first popes because of it. Me personally, I doubt he would have appreciated such a title. But the title he did prefer was Clement. Saint Clement of Rome, or as I call him, the Whisperer. Saint Clement was a calm man who stood in the background. But you don't get to be the Bishop of Rome and stay out of the spotlight. He was eventually captured by the then Emperor Trajan. First, he was exiled to the shores of Crimea, but eventually he was put to death. They tied an anchor around his neck and they threw him into the Black Sea. Peter's called a rock, Paul is called the apostle, and Clement, well, Clement is at times called the anchor. And so he is. All right. So there you go. For tonight, well, actually, I shouldn't say for tonight. November 23rd. So that's this Sunday is the celebration of Saint Clement. And the two things we have is there's actually a Saint Clement drink that you can get. And I looked it up and I'm trying to find it. I don't where did I put it? I may have closed out the page already, but anyway, there is a Saint Clement cocktail that you can get. So look that up. I know it has gin and vodka and all that kind of stuff. I apparently closed out of the page, so I can't remember it
But you need to
right
have
offhand.
that.
That being said, there's also there is the suggested meal was a chicken salad that was made with clementines, the oranges. Yeah. And so there you go. Chicken salad, a Clementine chicken salad, and a Saint Clementine or a Saint Clement drink. And the cocktail really is called just the Saint Clement. I honestly was beginning to wonder if that was made up. It was not. Apparently, it's in several places.
I haven't heard of it. Of course, I haven't heard of any of them, but
I was going to say I didn't hear of this one either.
Very interesting.
So there you go. I don't know if St. Clement's one that a lot of people know.
I had never heard of him.
He's considered the third pope or the fourth pope, depending. But again, this is before they called popes pope. And if I'm honest, from everything I was reading, I don't think he would have appreciated the title. That's just me. My brothers and sisters in Christ that are Catholic might have a different opinion. But anyway. All right. Well, with that, I'll fade out here.
And so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.
Very nice.
Very nice, very nice. And now we do have another segment to get to.
And it's time for Lectionary Loop. and our look at the upcoming lectionary texts.
All right. Let's take a gander at our lectionary text. Although I don't really need to that much because this coming Sunday, November 23rd, is the last Sunday of the church year. And being that it is the last Sunday of the church year, the theme is always the same. It is Christ the King Sunday. And so what that means is that it is the Sunday that focuses on Christ in his triumphant, exalted state. So basically, the gospel lesson, actually the gospel lesson is going to show Jesus triumphant, but in a more of a cross state. So it's going to show his humility, while at the same time with that, the Colossians text 1:13 through 20 is talking about how Jesus delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. And again, this kind of emphasizes the king aspect of it. And then, of course, you have Malachi again. So talking about the coming of the Lord. So we have three texts. The Luke passage is maybe the more unique one. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I believe this is the one I'll be preaching on Sunday. Because he's on his way to the cross, and people are mourning and they're lamenting him, and he kind of turns to them and kind of says, "Hey, don't lament me, lament you." It's a kind of a unique turn that he kind of does, kind of emphasizing that he's king. He's going where he wants to go.
Right.
Um, this is the will of his Father. This is the will, and he's fulfilling the will of God. But again, so the emphasis this week really is the triumphant victory of Christ. It's called Christ the King Sunday, and it is always the last Sunday of the church year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited.
I was like,
no,
I lost Casey.
I'm excited because it's a fun. We're focusing this week on the last Sunday of the year and the church year, and doing a little Thanksgiving in there. And
oh, sure,
I'm excited for Christmas to start. And I'm also just excited for things not to be green anymore.
They are green. They are green. Oh man.
Green forever.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, no, this is kind of a fun time, and it's also fun because we really, we're so used to looking at January 1st as New Year's Day, and it's like the church year kind of throws you for a curveball because they're like, yeah, no, first of the year is like end of November, early December, so it's kind of fun. So, all right. Do you have any questions over that?
No, I'm just excited, to be honest. I think I don't know. I feel like, start of a new church year is exciting.
It is. It absolutely is. All right. Well, if that's the case, let's move on to
our last segment, probably.
All right. Are we ready for church chatter? Oh, we got
church chatter. All right. So before I get going, I have a correction to make. Actually, I don't know if it's a correction. I don't know about that. I was kind of called out a little bit. Rightfully so.
Called out.
But so we had a discussion a few weeks ago over the freedom of speech. Do you remember that?
I think so. I don't know.
We were talking about whether or not freedom of speech was something that we could argue was basically found in Holy Scripture.
Right. Okay. Yes, I remember.
Now, we kind of talked about that back and forth, but in the end, I kind of said, no, not really. I think some people thought that I had actually argued that it was.
Oh, okay.
and so they kind of said, well, no, it's really not. And so I have to, I'm not really doing a correction, just more of a clarification, because I went back and I listened to the episode again, and I did in fact say at the end that that it was not a biblical mandate. But at the same time, like, I also understand that sometimes when you're having like 20, 30 minutes of speech, it can get
Yes, I
confusing.
can.
So just for clarity's sake, so that everybody is aware, free speech, a wonderful thing that we have in America, it is most definitely not a biblical mandate. In fact, as good Christians, we actually will restrict and limit our own speech. You know, remember, our second commandment is, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Right? That's restricting your speech. As a Christian, you need to tone down your speech to a certain degree. So there you go. So there's kind of again, more of a clarification than anything, but it was interesting. So people, I listen to you. If you guys come up and talk about the podcast, I do listen.
That's right.
So so anyway, just thinking about some of the other stuff going on at St. John's, Sand Prairie. Of course, I'm sure you are as well, but gearing up for Thanksgiving next week already. 1 week from today, we're going to be having our, 1 week from today, it's Wednesday here. We're recording this Wednesday evening. But anyway, we'll be doing our Thanksgiving Eve on Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. And then after that, we're hanging the greens on November 30th. We want all the families to come, whether you're, 3 years old or 103. We want you there if you can. So anyway, I'm going to do some hanging of the green. Probably going to have some good time. Probably going to listen to some great Christmas music. Not all of it worship music, although I'm sure some of it will be. But anyway, so yeah, we got lots of stuff coming up, and then we're kind of looking ahead to the beginning of Advent. So yeah, so what's going on in your neck of the woods?
We're getting ready for the new year. Our call committee, I know, is working. I think they're going to try to put out another call soon. I don't know if they're trying to do it before the holiday or not, but I know that they're going to make another call. This Sunday, I'm inviting back the kids who played for the Soggy Waffles VBS band. And so I'm going to try to, I have a few of them who definitely are coming. So I'm excited about that. We're going to play, we have a couple songs from VBS that work really well for Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a fun time. I'm excited to have them play. And then, we're just gearing up. I'm just gearing up for Advent and all the Christmas songs and everything that we're going to be doing. So that's pretty much it. I actually don't know what our process is for decorating the church. So I'll have to ask about that, because I don't know if we have.
Yeah, you better get.
Yeah, I don't know if we have an official, day, or if just somebody does it during the week. At the church I grew up in, we had one guy who was an interior designer, and he did it. And it was amazing. It was always incredible. But he was he was really good at it, and he liked doing it, and he would just do it, So, but yeah, so I don't know. I'll check.
Well, more power to him. More power to him. Well, all right. Well, I guess that's all the time we have today. I keep saying this evening.
Well, it's evening for us.
I know it is evening. Yeah. No. Anyway. So good to. I hope. Man, now I'm just losing track of words. Like, words are coming out. Oh no. Anyway, thank you.
Bye.